Welcome in to News and Views with Tom Lamprecht. The stories you've heard and the ones you need to hear.
We have reached a very dangerous phase in the pandemic.
COVID vaccine.
Something new.
90% effective.
This vaccine, even if approved, will not be widely available for many months yet to come. The bottom line, I will spare no effort to turn this pandemic around once we're sworn in on January 20th. So please, I implore you, wear a mask.
Your life, your values, your voice. This is News and Views with Tom Lamprecht on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, welcome in. It is Monday News and Views. Tom and Bennie with you. Joe Biden is now a doctor. All we've been hearing about from Cousin Eddie for months now is that he had the cure, that he's going to get things under control. He's serious. He has the solution. And we've learned today that the solution is a mask mandate. That's right, folks. More authoritarianism. The mask Nazis will come pay you a visit if Uncle Joe's mask orders are not obeyed. Now, how is he going to implement this? By encouraging governors of states to mandate mask wearing. Now, I'm sure that Governor Cooper will oblige. However, Montana has now gotten a Republican governor. We've gained the Republicans have gained one additional Republican governor. So now 27 of the 50 states have Republican governors.
I thought it was 57 states.
Well,
I'm kidding. That's Obama.
It would be.
That's Obama's math.
It will be if the Democrats have their way. That would be 14 more senators for them, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny that. Well, it's not funny. Just think about a mask mandate. The pressure it's going to put on law enforcement. I feel sorry for law enforcement having to enforce this. I mean,
well, I don't think they will have to enforce it because there's no way you can mandate something like this. I don't think you can pass a law like this. I think it would be totally shut down by the Supreme Court, the current Supreme Court. Now, after they pack the court, who knows? By the way, is it not interesting? And Donald Trump Jr. Tweeted over the weekend, "It's a miracle. It's a miracle. The election has occurred and now COVID is cured." And I have been saying this since January. Don't worry. Come November 4th, COVID will all be over. The Hill this past weekend ran two stories. One, that researchers have developed a nasal spray treatment that appears to prevent coronavirus infections in ferrets and could potentially be used to protect human beings from contracting the COVID virus. This was in the New York Times. The Hill reported on it. A small study funded by the National Institute of Health and the Columbia University Medical Center, and that has yet to be peer-reviewed, details how the nasal spray protected ferrets. Anyway, so suddenly it takes place, and hey, it's no big deal. We've got a nose spray that works. The Hill also ran another story saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we can have music concerts after all. Yeah, just, it's fine. There's a new study out from German researchers. You got to be careful, but yeah, we can go ahead and have music concerts now. Then the Washington Post ran. Of course, the stock market was up early today, and who knows why it's up, but among other things, Pfizer and a German biotech company came out and said that we now have a vaccine that's 90% effective, protecting people. So the idea is, I guess, they got a vaccine that, everything's going to be fine. And the stock market said, okay, if everything's going to be fine, we won't have another shutdown. And the stock market surged today, although it didn't finish up as high as it was. Is it not interesting, though? So Joe Biden they said he was the new president, and therefore we can now come out with all this great information.
Yeah, this morning, CNN for one, and the others followed. Gleefully reporting that Pfizer has a vaccine that's 90% effective, and they wouldn't even discuss vaccine just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
No question about it. Oh, it's Trump's lying about the vaccine. We're not going to take Trump's vaccine. Was the words they kept using.
Did you hear what Andrew Cuomo said, though? He was on ABC News. This is cut 2, Clark. He was on ABC Good Morning with Steffi Stephanopoulos. And instead of being pleased with it, he said, well, it ain't that good.
Well, it's good news, bad news, George. The good news is the Pfizer tests look good, and we'll have a vaccine shortly. The bad news is that it's about 2 months before Joe Biden takes over, and that means this administration is going to be implementing a vaccine plan. The vaccine plan is very important, and it's probably the most ambitious undertaking since COVID began. Just to put it in focus, we did 120 million COVID tests in this nation over 7 months, scrambling, doing everything we can. We now have to do 330 million vaccinations, maybe twice. My state does more testing than any state in the United States. We did 12 million tests. We have to do 20 million vaccines. And the Trump administration is rolling out the vaccination plan, and I believe it's flawed. I believe it learns nothing from the past. They're basically going to have the private providers do it, and that's going to leave out all sorts of communities that were left out the first time when COVID ravaged them.
This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. I mean, first of all, this guy was the biggest coronavirus moron, perhaps in the world. I mean, this is the same guy that, remember, New York City was the seed planting coronavirus capital of the world. I mean, people
numbers in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is the same moron that made people that had coronavirus, they forced nursing homes with the most susceptible individuals living there. He forced the nursing homes to take in these coronavirus patients, and thousands of elderly people died.
Tens of thousands, yeah.
And you have Donald Trump, on the other hand, who did more, and he claims that the private sector, they can't do it well. Look, when it came to the ventilators, what did Donald Trump do? He went and partnered with the private sector, and they had more ventilators come out in a shorter period of time than it'd make your head spin. But this guy, no, the public sector, no, you can't trust them. It's got to be government only. It's got to be Joe Biden. Look, the only reason that Cuomo is not happy that Pfizer has come out with this vaccine that looks like it's going to be real and work is because Donald Trump will get the credit and Joe Biden won't. I mean, Joe Biden, the only thing he has to turn to is the masks. And Joe Biden downplayed this. He said, oh, yeah, okay, that's good we have a vaccine. But, it's going to be a long time before it comes out. It's not going to be that good. No, wear your mask. This is unbelievable. This guy, Cuomo, out of New York, who was a disaster, has the chutzpah to look at Donald Trump and say, well, no, he can't do the rollout. Why not? He got the vaccine quicker than anybody ever thought he would. Did he not say that before the end of the year? In fact, Trump said by the election, we'll have a vaccine. He missed it by less than a week. And he probably missed it by less than a week because of the pressures that were put on by the Democrats to not release the information. I don't doubt that for a second, that it was delayed on purpose.
I don't know how the media can just I don't see how they can just sleep at night, how dishonest they've been about this whole vaccine thing. And with the governor of New York, I used to listen to him. Now I have to read transcripts because
can't stand his voice.
There is not enough liquor in Pitt County for me to listen to him. And speaking of that, by the way, like the number 2 Google search on election night was liquor store near me. Seriously, that was reported today on some source. But early on during the coronavirus, the president would have a presentation in the afternoons, but always around lunchtime, the governor would have, and I'd listen to him because I'd maybe eating lunch at my desk. And early on, I wish I would have saved him. And he was just so inept at his job, it was just amazing.
Well, and now he says that, no, I didn't cause these deaths in the nursing homes. That's fake news, he says. I should have saved this next story for political trivia. Who is the first person of color to serve as the vice president of the United States? You would say...
First person of color to serve as vice president. Well, We've got a funny way of defining person of color now, so I don't know.
Well, everybody now is saying congratulations to Kamala Harris. She will be America's first person of color to serve as the vice president. Not so. I should have saved this for political trivia. I should have. The first person of color was Herbert Hoover's vice president from 1929 to 1933. Charles Curtis was a Native American.
How about that?
Yeah. You're not going to hear that from the mainstream media either.
As Johnny Carson would say, I did not know that.
Somebody just texted me. Actually, it's my daughter, who's probably more conservative than her old man is. Pfizer stopped doing the testing late October. I hope you're right on this, honey, because I'm reporting it as news. She says they stopped their testing in late October because they didn't want the results to come out until after the election. She says the head of Pfizer is a big lib.
That's really...
now, I've got to put that down as an editorial comment because I don't know if it's true or not yet. I'll have to check that out.
That's really in the interest of public health, if that's the truth.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, listen, the whole deal. I mean, they shut down the entire economy over the last 6 months to vilify Donald Trump. You know, the same daughter called me on Saturday and said, Dad, what are we going to do? They've announced that Joe Biden has won. And I said, well, honey, yeah, the mainstream media has announced that because the night before, Samuel Alito came out and said, Pennsylvania, you have got to segregate any absentee ballots that came in after the deadline of 8 o'clock on Election Day. That was the deadline. And so you can't count any of those afterwards. So as soon as Samuel Alito comes out with that decision, what does the mainstream media do? Oh, well, he's won. He's won. Oh, it's done. It's never mind. It's done. You don't have to worry about don't worry about because we've announced that he is now the president-elect.
Well, I don't know if we talked about it on air or off air, but it was either on Thursday or Friday. I think at Friday when Philadelphia had their press conference with their the mayor was there, had a couple of council people that were making political statements basically, and the election supervisor, and the election supervisor was asked a question: how many ballots did they have that came in after that time? And she could not answer that question. So to me, she kind of tipped her hand in that, hey, we didn't follow the Supreme Court order. And maybe that's what prompted Judge Alito to do that. But that was a live press conference. I think it was on Thursday or Friday.
Today, the Washington Examiner is reporting that Republicans attorney generals from nearly a dozen states have called upon the Supreme Court to intervene in a GOP lawsuit opposing the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision to extend counting of the mail-in ballots to include those that arrived up to 3 days after the election day, as long as they were postmarked by the time the polls closed. Now, bottom line of this is the same complaint that we had here in North Carolina that Tim Moore and Phil Berger took all the way to the Supreme Court. And, of course, we got kicked in the stomach.
Yeah, there too, yeah.
I had a lower opinion, but I decided to raise it. Got kicked in the stomach because we had the State Board of Election and an attorney general that wanted to legislate instead of having the states legislate. And this is what's going on in Pennsylvania right now. The state legislature, which is controlled by Republicans in Pennsylvania, they set the law, they set the rules, and you have unelected officials up there, or for that matter, the attorney general. Now, that might be Josh Shapiro up in Pennsylvania. He's an elected official, but he's not a legislator. He can't create these laws. He can't create these rules. The governor is not a legislator. It's up to the state legislatures to create election law. That is in the Constitution. That's in the federal Constitution. They are the ones that set the laws. And now these attorney generals are going to the U.S. Supreme Court and saying, please intervene. The Constitution is not being followed. It's pretty black and white.
Well, there was a reason that this has happened all summer long across the country with Democratic Democrat either attorney generals or filing lawsuits. I think
Constantly.
There was a total of 320 lawsuits filed across the country, most by Democrats, and the Republicans were in response to the ones that the Democrats had filed, basically to change laws enacted in each state about this election. And you got to hand it to them. They've done a pretty good job of stealing an election.
Well, the Coward-Priven whole thing, overwhelmed the system, and that's exactly what they've done. We've got to take a time out. Love to hear from you, 5618255. Stay with us. More news and views coming up.
The count is being
election interference.
What are you hiding?
As the dust settles.
The gloves are off.
What a disaster.
And reality sets in.
It's so disgraceful.
We don't go out and riot and loot.
It's unbelievable.
What happens next happens here.
The entire process has been just embarrassing.
Post-election fallout and what's next.
Very concerned about what is happening to our country. What's coming is rather frightening.
Now back to News and Views with Tom Lamprecht on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Welcome back in. 24 minutes past the top of the hour. Taking a look at your weather forecast. Mostly cloudy with low around 60 tonight. Tuesday, a slight chance of showers, otherwise sunshine, a high near 80. Wow. I'm liking this November weather. Tuesday night, a little bit more of a chance of showers. Not a 30% chance, not a lot. A low around 67. Veterans Day, showers with a high near 78. Chance of rain on Veterans Day, 80%. And more showers expected Wednesday night with low around 69. So not too bad for the next couple of days. Did you? This story actually came out I think Thursday of last week. But now the News and Observer and WRAL are even reporting on it. The First Lady of North Carolina, Kristen Cooper, there was a legal rally taking place. I guess it was up in Raleigh. And you had a bunch of, it was about 60 people. It was a pro-Trump, pro-America. They had the American flag. They had the Trump flags. They had the blue line flags, supporting our police. Kristen Cooper was going by this crowd, and some little boy, I think it was an 8-year-old boy, was waving a Trump flag. She shot him the bird. And then she goes on social media and brags about it. And it was so outlandish. In fact, when this story first broke, I thought, is this true? Could this really have happened? I mean, I know, I never put it past a Democrat to do something like this, but to shoot the bird at a kid who's out there at a legal rally, and you're the First Lady of North Carolina, and you're out there shooting the bird at kids, and it was so blatant that WRAL and the News and Observer has a report on it and take her to task and saying, that's not exactly a class act there.
Well,
First Lady.
When I saw it on WRAL, I knew it was the truth because I'm sure they probably put 20 people on it to try to debunk the story before they had to report it.
Yeah. So. And these are the same libs that are now calling us to all unite. Let's all unite. Let's have a Kumbaya fest. I mean, it is unbelievable. They're all out there doing it. Democrat Joe Biden defeats Donald Trump, and then he gets together on Saturday and said, well, let's not divide. Let's be unified. Let's all come together and be unified. Josh Hammer responds to it, says, pardon me if I don't immediately buy all the unity rhetoric from the party that's been toppling statues of the founding fathers, burning down cities, and telling us all year that America is systemically racist. Lisa Booth wrote, I don't want to unite with people who hate me, so put me down as a no. Matt Schlapp, for Democrats calling for unity, you may want to actually stop counting illegal votes in Nevada first. We're not suckers anymore. We caught you red-handed. Jim Jordan wrote, let me get this straight. Democrats want us to forget what they did to Michael Flynn, Brett Kavanaugh, Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, K.T. McFarland, the president and his family. Well said. This is like the mafia shaking you down, all of a sudden saying, can't we just all get along?
Yeah, and this is the same party that, started going after Donald Trump before he took office illegally.
Oh, yeah.
By the previous president, President Obama.
Well, let me ask you this, libs. If Trump ends up winning these court cases and this election flips back, the illegal votes are eliminated, are you still going to be about unity? I don't think so. What's even more bizarre, and this really is like going back to the 1930s in pre-Nazi Germany, where the brown shirts were going up and down the streets and picking out the Jews and taking them away. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and what's her name, this Jennifer Rubin at the Washington Post. These people are now calling for an enemies list. That if you supported Donald Trump, we're taking note, and you're going to pay the price.
Isn't that profiling?
Well, it wouldn't be profiling on your race or your gender, but it would be profiling based upon what you believe. Yeah, it would be it would be profiling. It would also be highly illegal. But since when do they care about following the law?
Well, I'd just like to say, put me on that list and come and get me.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
At your own risk.
Well, now here, that's a great point. Because there's been a lot of people that have, I'm not promoting anything here, although I've said it could be a real possibility. But there's people out there who say, is this the beginning of a civil war? Well, when you have rhetoric like this, you better believe it.
The Democrats and the mainstream media, and there's just endless amounts of evidence to back this up, they have created this problem in America. They have created this race problem right now we have in America. It's unbelievable, and it's been created by the media and the Democrats now to come out and say, "Oh, we just all need to get along." Is just it's laughable. It really is. I mean, they've created it. They've created it from the day Donald Trump. Well, actually, when he started running for office, really,
it is. It is unbelievable. 5618255. Let's go to the phones. We have Robert from Jacksonville on the line. Hey, Robert.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, no, it's from Cove City.
Cove City. Okay, well, our
what's
producer
going
got
on?
Hey, not a whole
Well,
lot.
it's been a while. I mean, how you doing there, Tom?
I'm
Say,
doing
you
well.
sound kind of sick there. You all right?
Well, she's lost her hair, too.
Yeah, she lost her hair,
She's
too.
still
Oh, my
lovely.
God.
come on, man.
Yeah, you got over there was talking about that. I loved it when they said the Associated Press said that Joe Biden won. I'm like, so the news tells us who wins now? I mean, I don't get that.
Well, they really do like to push around their authority, and they really do think, and there's been surveys done. I mean, these people in the media elite really do think that they're much more intelligent than any of the rest of us are.
Well,
they have the right. They have the right to tell you how to think. They really
you
think
brought
that.
up a good point about the Democrats and all, how there's a lot of them that ain't switched the way some of the little minorities have. And it's like somebody said when you brought up about Nazis and all, the Nazis really wasn't a big part of Germany. But they bullied their way, and all of a sudden they made law, and then Germany was like, wait, what happened? So,
well, and that's a great point. That's a great point, Robert, because I think a lot of people that saw the AOCs just a couple of years ago sort of chuckled at her, how laughable it is. Now, I honestly do not think that they have won a legal election.
No,
but they're coming awful close to getting away with stealing an election. It's not over yet, and this is why this president. And this, again, I will encourage our people to go to DonaldJTrump.com and give, if you haven't given already, so that they'll have enough cash to fight this. But if they get away with this, it's going to be
what's next?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to win an election. And look, they might still get away with it, but we need to make it as painful as possible that only the legal votes are counted, and that this is not something you're going to waltz in and just take from us.
Not all votes, legal votes.
Right, that only the legal votes are counted. Yeah.
Well, that you brought up that thing, but I remember somebody said it's amazing how after about 4 years of them trying to say that the last election got hacked, they're okay with this one with all the mail-in ballots and how that could be hacked.
Yep. It depends on whose cow is getting gored.
Exactly.
Robert, thanks for the call.
Have a good one.
You appreciate it. 5618255. Let's go to another Robert in Washington. Hey, Robert.
How you doing?
Doing well.
I just wanted to make this point, and I think the president and all Republicans should get this out there. At the same time, Democrats were accusing Trump and the Republicans of trying to confirm Amy Coney Barrett so that we can subvert legislation federally and make law through the Supreme Court. They did the same exact thing with the state Supreme Court. They overseen election laws and state legislation by changing the election law. So at the very same time they're accusing us of using the federal Supreme Court to subvert legislation, they were literally subverting state legislation with state Supreme Court justices.
Great point. And that's how they operate. I mean, if they're accusing you of something that looks that they're saying is nefarious, watch out because they're doing it.
Well, that's why they spent so much money at every state race. I mean, right on down to local races of district attorneys. I mean, they do know. They always talk about we're a democracy, but they do know we're a republic, and they want to destroy the republic and republic,
right.
And it's got to start at the state level, and that's why they're just spending an ungodly amount of money at the state levels to do this.
And thank goodness they didn't get away with it. Great point, Robert. Thanks for that. 5618255. Do we still have Ed on the line?
Yes. Yes, we do.
Hey, Ed. How are you doing, sir?
Fine, sir. I hadn't talked to you guys in years. Same as last about Sadie, but I've been out of town.
Well, welcome back.
So I'm listening and watching Fox, and Neil Cavuto just censored Kellyanne Conway like he's from Twitter.
Wow.
And we just need to stand up and call an end to this. Fox was the only island we had out there, and now they're turning.
Well, actually, we do have it in Newsmax TV. In fact, I saw somewhere that Newsmax TV is actually on Suddenlink now, but Newsmax TV might be and if you don't have Suddenlink, you can get Roku and you can get Fox Newsmax on Fox News. In fact, I was telling Benny before we went on the air, I saw a headline somewhere, but I couldn't. Then I went back to get the story to print it off, and I couldn't find it. But I saw a headline that the Fox News ratings on Saturday tanked. That there's been like a major boycott of Fox News.
We just got done listening to a bunch of Democrats talk about how we're for sports and we're trying to steal the election, and then Kellyanne Conway comes forward and starts talking about what they're really doing, and he cuts her right off. So Fox, goodbye. Facebook, goodbye. I'll keep listening to you while I'm in town, though. Don't worry about it, even though you did get rid of Sadie.
Hey, listen, we did not get rid of Sadie. So Sadie moved to Virginia, and we cried as she was pulling out of town. But she and her husband are up in.
I know you guys do a great. You guys do a great job. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words, Ed. 5618255. Let's go ahead and take another time out. We'll get to your phone calls as soon as we get back. Stay with us. More news and views coming up.
1037.
Welcome back in 20 minutes before the top of the hour. So Sidney Powell over the weekend, now she's the same attorney that is representing Michael Flynn. Mm-hmm. She's come out and this woman is not a wild-eyed conspiracy type of person. She is a constitutionalist, very laid back. Her demeanor never changes. I mean, she's the opposite of me. I go bananas and my voice goes up and I start screaming. I start waving my hands. She just sits there very politely, almost monotone. It's amazing she's such a good attorney because she just seems to be so laid back. But she came out over the weekend and she said, we've identified 450,000 ballots that miraculously only have a vote for Joe Biden. You were saying during the break, that doesn't pass the smell test.
No. Mm-mm. And it's only in states that were in play, just like the same situation of when they stopped counting the votes on election night. And I got some friends that I hope we can remain friends through all this, but they call me a conspiracy theorist. But really, you just need to ask yourself, why was it only the states that were in play that had to stop on election night from counting their votes?
Well, again, I mean, when do you ever remember that ever happening before?
It's never happened.
Yeah, I don't think it has. And trying to get some information here, apparently it looks like the Trump campaign is putting together a Million MAGA March. Go to DonaldJTrump.com and see if it's up there. A Million MAGA March this Saturday in Washington, D.C., November the 14th. At 3 o'clock. From 12 to 3 o'clock. Starts at noon, ends at 3. It's the Million MAGA March for the, and it looks like it must be something the Trump campaign is putting on. So you might want to go to DonaldJTrump.com and see more information on that. 561-8255. Arlene from New Bern has been waiting patiently. Hey, Arlene.
Hello.
Hey, Arlene.
How are you?
Doing well. Good to hear from you.
I just have to say, with regard to what you were talking about, it's starting on a statewide level.
Mm-hmm. By the way, turn your radio down. You're hearing yourself on the delay, and that's causing you a little confusion. Turn your radio down,
okay.
And then.
Is that better?
Well, yeah, that's fine. It's when you hear yourself 7 seconds after you speak, it has a tendency to confuse you. So start over again, Arlene. Good to hear from you.
I was just saying, with regard to what you had mentioned about things starting on a state level, I have just preliminarily done some simple, basic math, and it's not adding up for our gubernatorial race. According to what I had compiled so far, which is not a deep dive, we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,637,000 plus registered voters in the state of North Carolina. But when you add up the number of votes for Dan Forrest and the number of votes for Roy Cooper, they far and away exceed 5 million, which is about 714,000 more votes than registered voters.
Interesting. Now,
yes.
We don't have same-day voting here on Election Day, do we? But I think you can do same-day voting on the early voting. So it's possible that some of those votes are votes of people who just signed up to vote and then turned around and voted that same day. So they might not be counted in your total number of registered voters. That's possible.
Still a lot.
It's still, yeah, I agree with you. If it's 700,000, if it's a 700,000 difference, yeah, that's beyond the pale. That doesn't pass the smell test either.
So I would like to encourage my fellow North Carolinians to do a little bit of due diligence and look a little closer and maybe start shooting some emails to our state representatives and bring our election for governor, because no one I know, I mean, it's just inconceivable with our president being ahead in the polls for that election why would that same state elect a Democrat governor?
That is the $64,000 question. That does not add up. That does not add up. I will say this, though. There are a lot of people who, despite what the Republican legislature has done for state workers, for teachers, they are convinced somehow that a Democrat governor is going to make their position more secure. I mean, I talk to people all the time, and that's the feedback that you get time and time again.
Well, as of election night, in North Carolina, there was just under 7.4 million registered voters in North Carolina.
Okay.
As of election night. And I followed that daily because I was noticing the registrations and all. So there was really no sudden jumps. There was, some pretty. It was only it was about 440, between 440 and 450,000 new registered voters since the 2016 election in North Carolina.
So apparently your number is a little off there, Arlene. He's saying 7.3 million.
But I mean, even with my numbers being off, even with that 4+ million going to 7 million, are you going to believe, I can't, that we had 100% voter turnout, that everybody that was registered voted?
Well, we wouldn't have. I think it was like 77. If these numbers are correct, I think it's more like 75%.
Yeah, 75% according to the Board of Elections. And about 4.6 million, a little over 4.6 million voted, according to their most recent data.
Arlene, we got to run. We got other people waiting, but thanks for the call, and thanks for listening. 561-8255. Let's go to John in Greenville. Hey, John.
Hey, Tom. How you been doing? I hope you and your family are well, and I'm sorry to hear Sadie's gone.
Well, we are too, but she listens from afar. Every now and then she calls in.
Hey, one thing, I talked to Sandy Smith yesterday at length about District 1, and they stopped the voting. She only has 77% of her districts reporting in. The Board of Elections is telling her, they'll just get back with her Friday. She was in a neck-and-neck race with Butterball right up to the time that they stopped the count, where he was sitting in Wilson, which is where they stopped it in her district. So they stopped it, and now there's 22% of the votes still out that she hasn't even gotten access to, nor can she even get anybody to respond to her. Any state authority will not even respond to her. But truly, this election was stolen. And the problem is we live in a lawless society when they don't convict people like James Comey for what they've done. And these people are now putting their thumb in your face and saying, yeah, most intelligent people are able to discern that, yes, this is a fraud perpetrated on the American people. But the question is, and since we've gone so far down the road and refused to prosecute people, we don't have any teeth in the law. So the Constitution means not a damn thing to them.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do? Because the Republicans refuse to prosecute people. And I've talked to several people over the course of the last 2 or 3 days, and they're not going to ever vote again because they feel like they have been disenfranchised totally. That's all I want to say, but I'll let you
Isn't it interesting, though, John? Isn't it interesting that all we heard about was disenfranchisement from the Democrats, that we've got to allow everybody and anybody, if they're breathing or even if they're not breathing, they've got to be able to vote. Otherwise, you're disenfranchising. Well, what they have done by stealing this vote is they have disenfranchised every legal voter. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care if you voted for Biden or if you voted for Trump. Now, maybe your guy won, but the bottom line is if they can get away with this, everybody's disenfranchised. We're not talking about 1 or 2 voters that didn't get the opportunity to vote. We're talking about a corrupt system. And we're talking about anarchy, and nobody's vote counted, but they got 70 million people out there that voted for Donald Trump, and you got 70 million people who are disenfranchised. And they're complaining there's a 0.5% of somebody that might not get their vote counted because they don't have a photo ID, which is a crock anyway.
This simply won't stand. It's time to talk about secession because I can tell you right now that people are not going to talk. There is no way this republic will stand divided as it is. And I'll tell you right now that this empty shell of a person that's going to be quote unquote our new president, the division will be more bitter, and it will be 10 times worse.
But just like it was under Obama, it was 10 times. Yeah. Oh, I mean, the whole division thing ramped up big time. He was supposed to be the great uniter, and he was the great divider. Hey, John, thanks for the call. We're up against the break. Stay with us. More news and views coming up.
Back to news and views. Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Welcome back in. It is 7 minutes before the top of the hour. A Media Research Center poll conducted by McLaughlin & Associates found that 36% of Biden voters were not aware of the evidence behind the claims that Joe Biden was personally involved in his son Hunter Biden's business deals with China. 13% of those voters, the 4.6% of Biden's total vote, said that had they known the facts, they would not have voted for Joe Biden. And this is, you can thank Facebook, Twitter, the mainstream media for censoring out that information. They did it on purpose. Congratulations to them. They were successful in giving the election to Joe Biden. 4.6% of those people that voted for Joe Biden said they wouldn't have had they known the truth about Joe Biden's dealings with his son Hunter.
And why did the FBI sit on the information for months?
Great question. 5618255. Let's go to Goldsboro. We have Dave on the line. Hi, Dave.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing well. Good to hear from you.
I just heard an interesting fact. It was on Hannity, so I guess it's correct. Earlier today, he said that out of the so-called 14 million votes, or 140 million votes cast, Biden supposedly only leads by right around 120,000.
Yeah.
So that would explain, their desperation and trying to, call it before it's called and everything else they've been doing.
Yeah, those numbers sound correct. And,
yeah, it's like 0.008% or something like that. I mean,
yeah, and you stop and think about it. Has there ever been an election closer than that? And is it only that close because they're just getting enough votes in just to get their nose above the waterline?
Well, I'm sure it's got to be from. You can't have a person like Miss Powell come up and say she's got 450,000 ballots with a single, vote for Biden and nothing else. I mean, it doesn't work in statistics.
Yeah, there was an interesting article out in the American Thinker by Jay Valentine today, and just saying, you know what, the Biden people have got to be a little scared, a little shaky, because as I say, their nose is just barely above the waterline. And it's only going to take the Supreme Court, and I would think the Supreme Court would get involved. I can't imagine they even, now I say this, but John Roberts is nothing but disappointment. I can't imagine John Roberts being so influential that he would shut down the Supreme Court and not hear some of these cases. That would be hard to conceive. And if it gets to the Supreme Court, I think Donald Trump's chances of having some of these illegal votes tossed is pretty good. I'm actually feeling more optimistic today than I was at the end of last week. I think the evidence that's coming out is pretty strong, and you've got a lot of folks out there that are willing to testify that they have witnessed illegalities taking place, and we'll see what happens. But I'm feeling optimistic.
Yeah, these people are signing legal.